documentary episode, we're gonna talk about the types of risks that we have not touched yet in the previous episode. As we know, many organizations categories race into different types of risks. The use of risk categories can help them with the process of risk identification and assessment. There is no single system of risk categories. The risk categories used by companies and other organizations differ according to circumstance.
Economic risk is referring to the risk exposure of an investment made in foreign country due to changes in the business condition or adverse effect of macroeconomic factors. This risk might result from unemployment rates where the countries will need to increase their benefit spending, placing more pressure on the national budget. Second factor, I will say that there might be inflation where the purchasing power of money over time is become in declining state. International trade also might result economic risk, which well known as the purchase and sale of goods and services by companies in different countries. Last factor that might result to economic risk is when economic activity drops drastically, where a country owes more money than it generates through tax revenue. You know that a credit crunch is one of the examples of this economic risk. It can occur when regulatory bodies increase capital requirements for financial institutions. Banks and other lenders are required to maintain a set amount of capital liquidity based on their risk-weighted level of assets.
Now we're gonna move to the financial risk.
Financial risk is the kind of risk that includes changes in an organization's financial condition, such as exchange rate, interest rate, credit rating, or even commodity prices. In other terms, financial risk is the chance of losing money on an investment or business venture. Financial risk is a kind of risk that might result in financial loss for interested parties. Corporations face the risk of default on debt, but they may also fail in an endeavor that puts the firm's finances under pressure. So in basic, there are 5 types of financial risk, which are credit risk, political risk, currency risk, interest rate risk, and also gearing risk. But for today, I will only talk about 2 of the types, which are credit risk and also political risk. So there's the credit risk. Credit risk is essentially the risk of non-payment or deferred payment by a customer. Debt incapacity, financial penalties, being imprisoned in debt with exorbitant interest rates, and other reasons are a few examples. To put it another way, when a client is unable to meet their commitments to their counterparties, whether temporarily or permanently, it has a serious impact on the company's financial statements. Don't we not want it to happen? So how can we prevent or mitigate this sort of risk? The first step for every organization or business before lending money or allowing a consumer to pay on credit is to firstly assess their credit worthiness. Assessing prospective borrowers' credit worthiness accurately is much more successful than chasing late payments after the fact. Chasing late payments may waste valuable financial and human resources that might otherwise be used to build new business. Furthermore, there is always the risk of late payment resulting in bad debt. Now comes the political risk.
Now let's look at the political risk.
As with everything involving the government, this may be a bit of a thorny issue for some. Changes in fiscal policy or other choices made at the policymaking level might pose a threat to a company's bottom line. Simply put, the possibility that an investment's return would decline because of a country's political turmoil or instability is known as political risk. Investment return volatility might occur as a consequence of changes in government, legislatures, foreign authorities, or even military force. To provide some context for you, the right to export and import goods, to own and manage a company, and other economic freedoms may be subject to change under an incoming government. If a corporation can avoid investing in a nation with a high political risk rating, it may minimize its exposure to this risk. Another option for multinational businesses is to invest in a political risk insurance.
We have go through credit risk and political risk. Now let's hear about the currency risk, interest rate risk, and also gearing risk.
Currency risk or foreign exchange risk arises from the possibility of movement in foreign exchange rates and the value of one currency in relation to another. The Asian financial crisis of 1997 shook many multinationals in the Asian markets with problems caused by the wild fluctuations in the exchange rates of many countries in the region at that time. It started as a country crisis when Bangkok stopped linking the Thai baht to the US dollar. This led to the series of currency devaluations and a large amount of money leaving the country. In the first 6 months, the Indonesian rupiah lost about 80% of its value, the Thai baht lost more than 50%, the South Korean won lost almost 50%, and the Malaysian ringgit also lost about 45% of its value. So how to prevent currency risk? For this type of risk, it is unavoidable, but it can be mitigated through hedging techniques to get rid of the forex risk. The investor would have to stop buying assets in other countries, but currency forwards or futures can be used to lessen the risk of exchange rates changes.
Now we're gonna look at the interest rate risk.
Interest rate risk. Interest rate risk is changes in interest rate pose a threat to the financial health of a company. This includes interest rate fluctuations that have a negative impact on the value and the liquidity of fixed or floating rate exposures. Interest rate swings affect the stock prices, foreign currency rates, and economic development directly in addition to bond prices. Interest rate risk is the chance that a change in interest rates could be cause unexpected gain or losses. This can be seen in the year 2003 where Aman Capital was set up by the top derivatives traders at UBS, which is the largest bank in the Europe. It was supposed to be Singapore's flagship hedge fund, but it lost an estimated $100 million because of leverage trades in credit derivatives. So, how to prevent interest rates? For this type of risk, there are ways to mitigate the interest rates, which are diversification and hedging. By diversification, the bondholder can diversify his existing portfolio by adding some security whose value is less prone to the interest rate fluctuations, including a mix of short-term and long-term bonds. By hedging, bondholder can include the purchase of different types of derivatives such as futures or options.
Gearing risk.
Gearing risk. For the gearing risk, which is also called liquidity risk, is the risk that comes from high financial gearing and borrowing a lot of money. Gearing can be measured by gearing ratio, which is the indicator of the financial risk associated with the company. That gearing ratio can be calculated by dividing the total debt by the total shareholders' equity, and the ratio is expressed as a percentage. If a company has too much debt, it can fall into financial distress. For example, Saipak Resources, who is in pioneering developer and provider in integrated renewable energy. The company recorded the highest gearing ratio in 2017 with 75.05%, and right now in the year 2022, they recorded about 120% gearing ratio. So, how to mitigate the risk? Gearing risk can be mitigated by evaluating the financial performance. The companies can sell shares which could be used to pay down the debt or reduce working capital or operational costs to increase the profit to pay the debt.
First of all, we need to know what is the word reputations. The reputation is the belief or what people think about anyone or anything. So, the corporate reputation risks are the risks
of the company's reputations will be eroded by a certain circumstances or the certain incidents. In other words, it is the risk that the company may lose their good name or good reputations. The better or the higher the reputations of one company, the more risk they will be faced. People love to see a good things and do a good things. So, if the company wants a good reputation, they need to show a good attitude or do a good things. But if they do a bad things, this will affect their performance and their sales. So, since the people nowadays are very sensitive toward a lot of issues like animal abusements, violation of the human rights, environmental pollutions, and many other things like the things that related to humanity especially, their impressions of the company will decide the reputation of the company itself. So once the company do a bad things, their reputation will be eroded and will affect their performance. So that's all about corporate reputations risk.
An example of a business that overlooks the risk of corporate reputation is Adidas. Bombs and sarcasm, two subjects who can live together in the same discourse only between intimate dialogues and consciously close to black humor. Certainly not in the subject of the email sent by Adidas to the participants of the Boston Marathon in 2017, the same event where 4 years before a terrorist attack was carried out cost the life of several people. The email sounds, "Congrats, you survived the Boston Marathon." This is the title of the message sent by the sports giant, really not very delicate and certainly to the public less indicated. However, the company is lucky since they managed to move on in a short time, releasing the public apologize about the incident and stating that it was a mistake of the email marketing team. And that's 50 minutes for today. Thank you for watching and see you guys on the next episode that will cover another type of risk. See you next time.